Hey everybody, Alan Tyler here. Video day 7, I think it is. It's a little confusing. Today, I'm actually probably going to try and do 2 videos. I ended up pulling down video number 5, which was a cover of me playing the drums to the Foo Fighters track Learn to Fly. One of my favorite songs of all time. One of the first songs I've fully transcribed on the drums and kind of learned all the way through. And I thought the video turned out really well, but I also tried to post it on Instagram on the same day or the next day or something like that. And Instagram instantly recognized that it was somebody else's copyrighted material, right? The Foo Fighters song. And they said, hey, we'll let you post it if you really, really want to, if you can click this button that says, I absolutely created everything that's in this. And I was like, oh yeah, right, I can't do that. And that reminded me that I've actually had a video in the past that actually had that same Foo Fighters song in it on either YouTube or Vimeo, one or the other, get pulled down for that reason. And I'd forgotten about that. I'm obviously not trying to make money off it or anything, but just from a artistic integrity standpoint and a musical integrity standpoint, not something that I want to try to be messing around with. So I actually went ahead and pulled that one down after I had listed it privately anyways on accident, so nobody could have seen it anyways. I do still have it, like there's nothing that says I can't have a recording of that, of me playing along to it, but trying to share it out there is kind of a no-no. So I'm going to try and do 2 videos today to make up for it. So this one will sort of like technically be video 5, 7, something like that. Still want to do at least a video today and probably another one. So I wanted to talk about the drums, a skill that I am learning and have actively been learning for a year and a half. I've been taking private lessons, and kind of the gist of the talk is there was a study done a number of years ago, or a couple of studies done, that there's sort of this magic number of hours of practice that experts in their field or masters in their field have had with a certain skill, that everybody was sort of had at least this many hours. And I first read about it in Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, one of my favorite books, really fantastic. I haven't read it for a number of years. I need to dig back into it. But he kind of outlines it and looks at the 2 that I remember is Bill Gates and the Beatles as 2 separate examples of people or musicians that had really specific circumstances where they had 10,000 hours of kind of dedicated active practice at these skills, and both of those names are by many considered to be the best in their fields, right? The Beatles are considered one of the best rock bands of all time, and Bill Gates, one of the richest people in the world, founded one of the biggest companies, one of the most successful, all of that kind of thing. So the moral of sort of that side of it is like, hey, like if you want to be the expert, you have to put in 10,000 hours. That seems like a lot of hours, and it is a lot of hours. But I want to kind of frame it a different way for the way that I look at learning new skills. I really like learning new things. Every new skill that I learn isn't necessarily something that I'm looking or hoping to be an expert at. I don't necessarily want to be the Bill Gates of every skill that I've ever tried or learned. I get into and learn new skills because I see somebody else doing it, or hear about it, or read about it, and I go, I think I would have a lot of fun doing that, or learning that, or participating in whatever that activity is. So I kind of want to reframe the 10,000 hours thing. Go, yes, 10,000 hours is to be an expert, but I think with a severely limited number of hours below that, you can be at a level of comfort, competency, and immense fun with any new skill that you pick up. And I'll give a couple of examples. Drumming is the most pertinent one that I'm actively been working on. I've been taking lessons for about a year and a half, 30-minute lesson once a week, and my sort of target is 60 to 90 minutes of practice a day, but I haven't done that throughout the entirety of the time that I've been taking lessons. So my estimate in a year and a half is that I've probably been actively practicing the drums for around 500 hours is my guess. But that's not necessarily going from 0 on a musical experience background. I played the trumpet and the piano for a number of years when I was little. I want to say 3rd grade through 8th grade. It was piano 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then trumpet 6th, 7th, 8th. Same good, I think, had private lessons for those, but really didn't practice an hour a day, definitely not. But I did that over a much longer period of time. So I had kind of a musical background, got totally away from it, played a little bit of guitar in high school and college. So I would say that with 500 hours of drum practice, that's built on a background and a base of probably another, as an estimate of how specifically it applied to me playing the drums, probably another 500 hours at the high end, sort of assuming where we're at. So that would be me saying that I'm at 1,000 hours of concentrated practice with learning to play the drums. And I'm definitely not an expert, right? I'm not part of a band. I'm not going on tour. I'm not recording. I'm not doing any of that stuff. But I'm having a ton of fun with it. I really, really enjoy it. It's helping me explore music in an entirely new way and a new level and new depth. I know a lot more of where I want to go with it and what I want to learn next and the things that I need to do. The next big step for me would be to get together with a group of friends or join a band or something just to be able to jam around and get used to actually playing with other musicians. And I feel much more I feel comfortable and confident on a drum kit. Now, if I was on a stage in front of 10,000 people tomorrow, I probably wouldn't feel super comfortable with that. But the point that I want to make is that I got to a level that I'm really happy with, and I want to continue pushing that. I want to continue moving forward and learning more and getting better. But ultimately, for me, it's something that I want to be able to have as a part of the rest of my life. If I end up getting to that 10,000 hours, that would be awesome. And being an expert and being a master of that'd be really, really cool. But for me to get to a level where I was having a ton of fun, I was having a lot of fun from day one, but that was with a single pad and not really a full drum kit. Now I'm at a point where I can be on a full drum kit and be able to play along with the song and really enjoy it. So some other examples of being able to get to that comfortable and confident level really, really quickly. Last year I took some salsa dancing classes and then some swing dancing classes. And through actually both of those, I ended up, through the swing dancing, I ended up joining a swing dancing performance team. So we learned one song, a 2.5, 3 minute song, but we performed it at the Rose Festival on one of the small stages. And then we performed again at a big swing night at the Crystal Ballroom called the Swing 500, where they try to get 500 people all doing a swing dance at the same time as sort of a social event. But they kind of took a halftime for that, and we got to perform our dance at that. So I performed a swing dance in front of at least 500 people a few months after I'd started learning to dance, right? From zero experience with dancing to, we practiced, I think, an hour and a half a week for 3 months, or an hour and a half twice a week for 3 months. So 3 hours a week for 12 weeks, at 36, probably 40 hours total with some extra practices we had thrown in there. Really not a lot of time. I'll say 50 hours at the high end. To go from not knowing anything about swing dancing to being part of a performance swing team, which is pretty crazy to me. Like, thinking about it, it was like, oh my gosh, I started last year wanting to take some kind of a dance lesson, took salsa, and then ended up performing with the swing team. While at the same time, I was also joined a salsa dancing team that we were part of a dance unit in the Starlight Parade here in Portland. So our dance crew had, sort of one segment in the parade, one float's worth of the parade, but there were 4 dance crews. Anyways, we did salsa, Cuban salsa, for 3 miles, right? So each of the 4 dance crews, we would kind of rotate and did this kind of systematic front of the line, back of the line kind of thing. But again, probably that one we had even less time to practice and prepare, but based on the salsa classes that I've been taking prior to that, I'll say probably 50 hours of dance time. Between those 2 specific dances, that's 100 hours total of dancing, where I felt much more comfortable and confident going out to dances, dancing at weddings, things like that. I'm just much more comfortable moving my body to a rhythm, to music, which is something that I really enjoy, and it's actually really healthy for you, both physically, emotionally, mentally. You get some endorphins going. It's a lot of fun. I really, really enjoy it. I have a big dumb smile on my face the whole time that I'm doing it. So there are more examples out there of that I think I've learned specific skills that didn't take very much time. And so the point is that 10,000 hours seems like a lot of hours, and it is. It's an immense amount of hours. But you can't go to 10,000 overnight. I'm somebody that wants to get to 10,000 tomorrow. But you can go from 0 to competent in a very short period of time with focused and concentrated effort on what it is that you're doing with the right coaches. Dancing, I went from 0 to performing in front of 500 people, or if you want to consider the Starlight Parade, something like 10 or 20,000 people come out to watch that, much less people watching it on TV, 0 to that in less than 50 hours. So if anything, I want this to be an encouragement for you to think about that skill, something that you've wanted to learn, something that you thought was cool, you wanted to try out. Go start doing it. 30 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day. Get started there. That time will start to add up. You'll start to learn where it is that you can learn more and use what you've learned so far to make connections on how that relates to what you've already learned. and go, oh wow, like that, I just learned about that thing, and that's similar to this thing in this other field. And that's making connections in your brain that's helping solidify the things that you're learning. So it's get started, and don't get scared by that 10,000 hour number, right? Like that, this is a great book, and this is about some of the best people in the world at the things that they do. But all of those people that are at that level started from zero, right? Like nobody was born with a guitar in their hands. Bill Gates wasn't born with a computer in his house. They didn't exist, right? Like he didn't have that option. So there was one quote that I heard at like a motivational conference, I actually thought was really cool, is that every master was once a disaster. Now, I'm sure you're not a disaster, but it may feel like when you're learning new skills that it's a whole disaster and you're really struggling to learn it and all of that. But the best people in the world were the worst at one point, right? Like they had no idea what they were doing and they screwed up a ton of times, but they've put in the time and put in the effort to get there. So 10,000, great, but don't worry about that. Know that in 50 hours, you'll be significantly better than where you are now. And then look at the next 50 hours and the next 50 and the next 50. And before you know it, you'll be having even more fun than you even thought you could have doing that skill. Or you may find out this totally isn't for me, but give it that chance. Give yourself 50 hours, give yourself 100 hours of concentrated, focused effort at the skill that you want to learn and you want to try. And then at that point, if you go, okay, this actually isn't for me, for a valid reason other than it's hard, if you actually don't like it, then spend your time doing something else. Spend 100 hours doing something different. One last thing to close with that, with the 100 hours thing. When I was in elementary school, we had, this is where I first heard this, and I've heard other people talk about it since then, but basically when you're picking up a new book, you don't know if you're gonna like the book. All your friends might love it, the reviews may be great for it, but ultimately, you may like it, you may not. You don't necessarily have to read a whole book to find that out in terms of how you're gonna spend your time. So we learned in elementary school that you take a book and you look at one of the final pages. So this book has 309, that's with the index, but there's probably not a ton more from that. So you take that number, move the decimal point over by 1 to estimate what 10% of the book would be, and then you flip to, so in this case, 309 is the total number of pages, so we'd go to, I'm gonna say 30 pages, and you would read 30 pages of the book. Either 30 pages or like a whole chapter. And in this book, one chapter is actually, the first chapter is 34 pages. So that'd be a great first chapter, read that. And at that point, if you don't feel like it's going to be worth your time to continue reading, you're not into it, you don't like the writing style, there's just something about it, put it down, move on, do something else, right? But give it the shot, give it that 10% shot to see where it's going to be. So with a new skill, don't try it one day and go and utterly fail at it and go, I never want to do that again. Keep trying, keep going. Even if it sucks for that time, give yourself 50 hours, give yourself 100 hours, and keep track of it. Keep it in a log or something. And try to write down how you feel that first day, and then on that 100th hour, whether that's a year later, whether it's a month later, whether it's 3 months later, it's not gonna be tomorrow. You can't get 100 hours by tomorrow. It's literally impossible, but you could get there in a couple months is really easy. Throwing in an extra hour a day for 3 months, you'd be at 100 hours. So this is your encouragement to try something new, make a commitment to it, sign up for a class, book yourself 30 minutes a day that you're gonna focus on something, book yourself an hour a day, book yourself 30 minutes a day and then a 2-hour block on the weekend, but put in some time with that new skill that you're thinking about tackling, and I'd love to hear about it below. Thanks for listening, and I can't wait to hear about your new skills. Thanks.